Somewhere, right now, someone is pausing. Not because of what they are reading, not because of a notification on their phone, but because of a thought you planted without meaning to. A fleeting word, a glance, a quiet stance that revealed more than you realized. And yet, you walked through that moment unaware. You thought you were ordinary. You thought the world barely noticed. But philosophy teaches us that the ordinary is never really ordinary. It is the unnoticed depth, the silent gravity of presence that shapes the world around us. This is the story of influence, presence, and subtle awareness. And it begins with one idea, that the moments we think are insignificant are often the moments that echo in someone else's mind. We are rarely seen for what we are. We are observed for what we radiate without trying. The most profound impact does not come from words, from performance, or from bold gestures. It comes from stillness, clarity, and the quiet assertion of being. Philosophers throughout history, from Lao Tzu to Heidegger, have reflected on the tension between being seen and being unnoticed. Lao Tzu said, "The master does not seek to be known, and thus is known." Heidegger spoke of being in the world, a presence that resonates in the spaces we occupy. And in every corner of existence, the same rule applies. True depth is invisible until someone attunes to it. Imagine walking into a room. You do not announce yourself. You do not perform. You simply exist. Yet somewhere in that room, someone feels the subtle pull of your presence. It is not conscious. They might not even understand it. But something about the way you inhabit space, the rhythm of your steps, the cadence of your voice, the pattern of your breathing, communicates a quiet authority. This is not charisma as it is commonly defined. Charisma is loud, performative, seductive in obvious ways. Presence, in contrast, is gravitational. It draws attention because it is self-contained, not because it demands recognition. And here is the paradox. The more genuinely present you are, the less likely people are to approach you, not because they do not wish to, but because they sense the weight of your being. Depth invites reverence before familiarity. Humans are observers. Often we watch what is happening, not who is present. But when someone senses true depth in another, the rules change. They notice patterns, repetitions, and gestures that seem trivial, but are rich in meaning. Philosophically, this aligns with phenomenology, the study of structures of experience. When someone experiences you deeply, they are engaging with you phenomenologically. They are not merely seeing your actions, they are perceiving your essence as it unfolds in the flow of the moment. This observation is silent. It is not announced with compliments or overt attention. It is in the way someone remembers your offhand remark about a book, your hesitation when speaking of the past, or the way your eyes briefly linger on a detail others overlook. These are signals encoded not for the world, but for someone attuned to your presence. Consider desire not as flamboyant, not as loud or insistent, but as architectural. Desire constructs itself in patterns, layering attention, proximity, and subtle gestures over time. From a philosophical perspective, desire is often misunderstood as craving or need. Plato argued that true desire is the pursuit of form, the recognition of beauty, truth, or virtue. And in daily human interaction, desire functions similarly. It observes, it remembers, it silently constructs a map of another person's inner world. Someone who is drawn to you does not always act. They linger in thresholds, in corridors, in shared spaces that seem coincidental. They listen, not merely to respond, but to understand. And every silent action, every presence, every glance, is a building block of connection that may never be spoken aloud. There are 5 subtle signs that someone notices your depth. The shift of gestures, they adjust subtly when you are near. Small movements betray attention. A hand brushes hair repeatedly. A posture mirrors yours unconsciously. An eye lingers too long. These are not conscious acts. They are the body revealing attention suppressed by social caution. Selective memory. They recall the insignificant things you thought forgotten. The tone of your voice, a joke made in passing, a personal reflection. Memory, when filtered through emotional significance, becomes the proof of observation. Eyes as witness. Eyes reveal before words do. A glance held slightly too long, a pupil dilated with unacknowledged attention. In these moments, the nervous system betrays desire even when the mind attempts to conceal it. Proximity as language. They arrange themselves in your environment, not to impose, not to dominate, but to coexist. Shared spaces, repeated encounters, and deliberate alignment of paths are all unspoken invitations to be noticed. Questions that probe. The inquiries are soft, deliberate, and designed to uncover what you protect. They are philosophical questions disguised as conversation. What matters most to you? What do you fear? Who were you before the world asked you to perform? They seek essence, not triviality. These are the signs of attentiveness, of quiet admiration, and of profound interest. They are philosophical because they seek truth beneath performance. When someone is observed this way but the observer remains silent, a paradox occurs. You may feel invisible, unaware that your presence resonates. You may question your worth, your impact, your ability to connect. Yet, unseen attention can be one of the deepest affirmations of your being. Philosophy teaches that the self is never fully grasped by itself. Hegel described self-consciousness as recognition by another. Even unspoken, invisible recognition validates existence. Someone who watches without acting is performing a kind of silent validation. They bear witness to you, but this creates tension. Emotional isolation can result. You feel unseen. You doubt your effect. And yet, the truth remains. The most significant impact is often unannounced, residing in the quiet gravity of presence. What should you do when someone mirrors these signs? You do not exploit, manipulate, or claim victory. Awareness, presence, and warmth are enough. Be a witness in return. Acknowledge subtly, without performance. Respond to the depth you see with the depth you embody. This is the essence of relational ethics in philosophy. Emmanuel Levinas spoke of the responsibility to the other, not as a duty enforced, but as a response to recognition. Seeing someone truly is to honor their existence and their courage. Small gestures, an attentive glance, a listening ear, a question that matters create space for connection without destroying it. This is the power of philosophical presence. You are not seducing. You are witnessing. You are not conquering. You are being. Throughout history, some thinkers have grasped the power of unseen presence. Consider Socrates. He rarely spoke for spectacle. He questioned. He listened. He observed. His influence was invisible to those who sought showmanship, yet profound to those attuned to thought. Socrates' dialogues were subtle, probing, and persistent, shaping minds quietly rather than commanding attention. Or Nietzsche, who wrote about the Übermensch, not as a conqueror of others, but as one who transcends ordinary expectations. Nietzsche's heroes are not always loud. They shape the world by being deeply themselves, creating ripples of influence that others feel before they understand why. Even Rumi, the 13th century poet, teaches this. His words speak not to dominate, but to awaken. The magnetism of his presence lies in the authenticity and depth of his insight. Those who resonate with him are transformed, quietly, internally, without the need for spectacle. The pattern is clear. True influence is not performed. It is inhabited. It is a form of gravity that attracts attention, reflection, and connection without force. Philosophy is not just theory. It is practice. To cultivate this subtle influence, you can engage in daily exercises, silent observation. Spend 10 minutes observing without engaging. Watch people, nature, or your surroundings. Notice patterns, rhythms, and subtle behaviors. This trains awareness and attunes you to nuance. Controlled stillness. Sit in a room alone. Focus on your breath. Become aware of how your presence occupies space. This strengthens internal gravity and cultivates quiet authority. Intentional listening. In conversations, resist the urge to reply immediately. Listen fully. Allow silence to hold weight. People naturally respond to this attention and feel understood on a deeper level. Subtle echoes. Reflect on your gestures, tone, and energy. Notice which actions elicit reactions without conscious effort. This helps you understand your invisible impact. Ethical awareness. Influence should never be manipulative. Practice responding rather than reacting, witnessing rather than controlling. True presence inspires rather than coerces. These practices are simple, yet transformative. Like muscles, the more you exercise your presence, the more natural and profound it becomes. Imagine a young teacher in a classroom. She speaks softly, moves deliberately, and asks questions that provoke thought rather than answers. Students are drawn not by her authority, but by her depth. Over time, her influence manifests quietly. Students reflect, grow, and create ideas inspired by her guidance. She never demands attention, yet shapes the minds of the future. Or a writer in a cafe, unnoticed by most patrons. She writes with precision, with authenticity. A stranger watches, fascinated by her focus. Years later, that stranger recalls her dedication and carries the inspiration into his own work. A life quietly touched, unseen at the moment, but unforgettable in retrospect. These stories show how influence often occurs in silence. It does not shout. It does not demand applause. It exists as subtle resonance, a truth that unfolds over time. Philosophers note that time reveals hidden depth. What goes unnoticed today may be profound tomorrow. Heidegger reminds us that being is a temporal unfolding. When someone senses your depth, they may not act immediately. Their attention simmers, quietly accumulating significance. Think of it like planting seeds. A fleeting smile, a casual remark, a small act of authenticity. These are seeds planted in the mind of another. The growth is invisible, the timeline unknown, but the effect is lasting. Influence is rarely instant. It is patient, cumulative, and subtle. With power comes responsibility, even the power of subtle influence. Philosophy teaches us that being observed without consent carries moral weight. The observer may form attachments, assumptions, or judgments based on limited perception. You must navigate this carefully. Influence should never manipulate, coerce, or exploit. Instead, it should honor the observer's autonomy. The goal is not control. It is authentic presence. To be deeply oneself is to offer others the chance to engage with truth without imposing expectations. Consider this your ethical framework. Your depth must be shared gently, your influence offered, not forced. The most powerful connections are freely chosen, not extracted. Just as others may notice you quietly, you too can cultivate awareness of subtle currents around you. Pay attention to lingering glances. Not every look is casual. Some carry curiosity, admiration, or reflection. Micro-actions, repeated small gestures often reveal interest or resonance. Silences, moments of quiet and conversation can indicate thoughtfulness or deep engagement. Memory. When someone recalls a small detail from weeks ago, it reflects deeper observation than casual memory could manage. By recognizing these signs, you participate in the invisible dance of human interaction. You learn to respond with presence, awareness, and authenticity, deepening connection rather than disrupting it. Ultimately, life is the interplay of presence and perception. We are both observers and observed, participants and witnesses. The philosophy of unseen influence reminds us that depth is silent, yet resonant. Influence is not forced, it is embodied. Connection unfolds over time, often unnoticed. Ethical presence amplifies authenticity. Moments that seem trivial can leave lasting impact. To live with this awareness is to embrace both humility and power. Humility, because we cannot control how others perceive us. Power because our presence has consequences beyond our knowledge. Every moment someone may be observing you quietly. Every word, every pause, every gesture leaves an imprint. What you think is ordinary is extraordinary. What you think is ignored is internalized. Your presence resonates beyond awareness. The philosophical lesson is simple but profound. To live consciously is to recognize that every interaction, every silence, every glance carries meaning. The world is always noticing, even when you cannot see it. And the truest influence is quiet, subtle, and persistent. So walk through life aware of this unseen audience. Observe deeply, act with presence, and honor the invisible threads connecting you to others. Because the moments you think matter least may matter most. The ripples of quiet existence can shape the thoughts, emotions, and desires of someone else in ways you will never fully know. And perhaps, somewhere right now, someone is noticing you, not for what you do, but for the way you exist. Waiting for a sign, hoping for a connection, quietly revering the presence you have never claimed. You were never invisible. You were quietly unforgettable.